Hi, my name is Farah Shamszadeh. I'm a principal engineer at a biotech company. As a young child, I was always fascinated by animals. And when I was really little, I was like 5 years old, we went on a field trip to a local park. And after lunch, I was the one that took her thermos into the pond and gathered tadpoles and brought them home to show my mom. And so, I always, as a young kid, enjoyed studying creatures, looking at them. And so that, for me, was part of the reason why I always moved towards the sciences, and it felt like a natural fit for me. My my mother was kind enough to take us back to the park and drop off the frogs because that was probably not the best choice. I also had to give up my thermos because she didn't feel that she could get it clean enough after that. One of my favorite discoveries is antibiotics. The story of how our scientists in a lab figured out that fungus and bacteria don't get along is an amazing story and a real inspiration, because it shows you that scientific discoveries can come from anywhere. And being observant is like the number one thing in being a scientist. And for me, that's really exemplifies why science is so great, and why a curious mind is one of the best things you can have in science. Yeah, I used to work in a lab as a college student, and it was a cell and developmental biology lab. And we'd have the model animal was a hydra. And that hydra is like a tiny little freshwater animal. And what you can do is you can dissect them into their parts so you can observe them. I had to quit drinking coffee because my hands were shaking too much to do my work. And so for me, it showed me that having good work ethic in science is important, but it's also a funny part of having to change yourself to be able to do your job. So yeah, I worked in that lab for about 2 years, and I was really happy when I graduated and I can go back to drinking my favorite beverages. I'm back to coffee. It is the hydra. The Hydra vulgaris is a really neat little organism. It has a lot of different little cells across its body that can feel heat and can sense light. But one of the reasons why it's a great model is because it's the precursor to the cells that we have in our eye and what we can feel and touch. And we used that model to discover a lot about how cells grow and how they divide and how they can sense different things. I think I would tell myself to explore a lot more options and to look at different things. I was going to a school where things were very theoretical, but my approach in my life is pretty pragmatic. And if I had looked at opportunities and applied science, maybe I would have a different outcome right now or be doing a different job. So what I did do is I graduated, and then I ended up taking a master's degree program in an applied science. So I studied environmental science for 2 years after I graduated with my biology degree because I wanted to learn how to apply what I learned in theory. So I would say to my future self, if I could go back to really think about that, because maybe my path would have been a little different. Recently, I watched a television show called Lessons in Chemistry, and I thought it was really interesting how she, after she could no longer work in a lab, she built her own lab in her kitchen, and how thoughtful she was in that process, and making sure that her laboratory was safe and still usable. I thought that was a really neat show, and that the scientific questions she was asking at the time was really interesting too, looking at evolution and biochemistry. So I really enjoyed that pop culture show and the icon that they developed for her, because at the time that show took place in the 50s, women scientists were really hard to come by. So I thought that was great. Yeah, I would like to say that always be curious, always ask questions, always um, be fearless in asking those questions and put yourself forward. Um, don't lose sight of the things that interest you and take time to explore. If you like more than one science, don't be afraid to try a class in that topic because you might surprise yourself and find that that's the field for you. So definitely when you're in high school and college, you need to take that time and really explore. Don't be afraid to try new things.